Welcome trainers and champions to another Pokemon fantasy pick. Basically what this video is, we are talking about Pokemon in the TCG that should get a certain card out. This could be a Pokemon that either hasn't seen a card in a very long time or a Pokemon that we feel like should deserve more love and praise. And today I am going to be showing off my fantasy pick for Slaking V/VMAX. Yes, I'm going to be talking about a V and a VMAX. Also, if you guys want to check out the last fantasy pick that we did it on the new Reggies, Regieleki and Regidrago. I should hopefully remember to put the link to that video in the description below. So anyways, as we said before, if you guys want to do this, you are more than happy to do it if you wish. Again, just make it realistic, like you're actually using the card in the card game. Think about, would it have relative HP to the Pokemon? Would it have, a decent retreat cost, and blah, blah, blah. So today we are looking at Slaking V and Slaking VMAX. And I'm going to talk about Slaking V first because obviously V goes into VMAX, so we're going to be talking about the V first. Slaking V, I would obviously have it as a colorless type since it is a normal Pokemon in the video games. It's only normal to be a colorless Pokemon in the TCG. For HP, I would give it 270. I know you're thinking, oh, well, this is a bit high. Yes, it would be a bit high, but remember Pokemon like Wailord V would have 280, and Wailord's normally the biggest Pokemon with the biggest HP we can possibly find, so yeah, Slaking I feel like would have high, but not as big as Wailord. I feel like maybe just a tiny bit under. So 270 I feel like is a decent amount to have. I would give a retreat cost of 4 because obviously it's Slaking, it's a lazy boy, it's a chunky boy, so yeah, it deserves 4 retreat cost. And obviously since it's a colorless type, its weakness would be fighting. Again, this works the same with all the other colorless type Pokemon that we've had. This works exactly the same in this video game, so I don't see any reason to change it. But for Slaking V, I would give it 2 attacks. First off, I would give it, for 2 colorless energy, Belly Drum. And it just says during your next turn, this Pokemon's attack do 30 extra damage. Literally the only reason for this is to buff up the next attack. There's no attack cost for it, there's no damage being done and also charges it up later. There's nothing like that. It literally just sets you up for the next attack. And the reason why I made it 2 colorless energy is because you can pay that off very, very easily. You could do a Tapu Koko plus attachment, you could do something like Welder, and it also saves you an attachment for another Pokemon. There's a lot of different ways you can probably do this. And since Slaking V is a basic Pokemon, you could also do something like Turbo Patch to get energy back. You could do something like Boltund even to attach energy faster. There's a few combinations you can do. So yeah, I feel like 2 colors energy would be fairly decent for this attack. Which then leads on to its next attack that I've given it. For 4 colorless energy, I've given it Crashing Slumber. I've given it 200 damage because if you use Belly Drum beforehand, that would basically be 230. But I've given it a condition where it says this Pokemon is now asleep. If this Pokemon is active and is damaged from your opponent's attacks during your opponent's next turn, put 30 damage on your opponent's active Pokemon. So it's literally a hit and punish. So the only drawback for this is that Slaking goes asleep. Obviously it goes on a coin flip. You could probably switch it out to wake it back up, anything like that. But until then, your Pokemon is stuck in the active, which kind of suits Slaking's personality. It's a very chunky Pokemon that doesn't really care much. It hits hard and just stays still, which is pretty decent for a card like this. But beyond that, there's nothing really much I can add on. Again, like I said, Belly Drum would make it 230 if you decide to go that route, but a nice 200 damage is more than enough for a decent amount of damage anyway. It's not overkill for a V Pokemon, especially if it evolves into VMAX. It's not underkill to the point where it's not usable. I would find it to be a pretty interesting Pokemon. Speaking of interesting, I would put a lot of emphasis on Slaking VMAX. I feel like Slaking VMAX would be an amazing Pokemon and would probably have one of the highest HPs that we've seen in a VMAX Pokemon to date. I would give it 350 HP, which is I think just 10 above higher than Eternatus. I can't remember fully, but I'm pretty sure it is. I think I'd have to check again. So future me in editing, just let me know. But I'd give its HP 350. Also again, retreat cost of 4, so something like buff padding would give him 400 HP, which is insane. That is absolutely insane to give to a VMAX Pokemon. But again, it's a chunky boy. I feel like it suits. I feel like it's just a very decent Pokemon to have. But in terms of Slaking VMAX, I would give it just an ability and an attack. I wouldn't give it 2 attacks or anything like that. I'd just give it 1 solid ability and 1 solid attack. And I'd give the ability Slack Off, because Slack Off was also the ability that Slaking had in the video game, so yeah, why not? So its ability would read, every other turn, this Pokemon cannot attack, even if it is swapped out with a new Pokemon. So yeah, again, literally like how it runs in the video games. The way it works in the video games is that Slaking is a chunky boy that hits every other turn. So it hits hard one turn, doesn't do anything the second turn, and then the third turn it hits again. So it literally works the same way. You would use Slaking VMAX to hit hard, next turn you're kind of stuck, or you'd have to rely on a backup attacker, and then the turn after that, Slaking comes back, and you just hit hard all over again. It's literally, that's the whole premise that I'm trying to give with Slaking VMAX, is that it's a heavy hitter, just not all the time. It's not always guaranteed that you're going to be hitting him every single time. But for its attack, I wouldn't give it any conditions, I wouldn't make it anything special, I would just make it a solid round number, and that's it. I would give it 4 colorless energy, and I would call it Deep Sleep Strike for 300 damage, and that is it. The reason why I gave it 300 damage is because 1, its ability would prevent it from doing it consistently every turn, and 2, we've seen a VMAX Pokemon hit 300 before, and that is Charizard. The reason why I made it 4 instead of Charizard VMAX's 5 is because 1, you could do something like Welder for Charizard. Even though it discards 3 energy from Charizard, you can still do Welder Attachment or Triple XL, and you're ready to hit that attack again. But for Slaking, there's no condition like that. There's no condition of discarding energy or anything like that. You could just hit 300 damage straight off. But with the ability preventing you, from hitting it every turn, doing 300 damage every turn, especially with 400 HP if you add buff padding, yeah, you're probably going to want to cap that off a bit. So the reason why I gave it the slack off is literally for that. So that way you can hit 300 damage, you take a turn, take a breather, let your opponent figure out what they're doing. You also figure out what you're doing, figure out who's your backup attacker. If you've put a lot of emphasis on Slaking, then that means, you've not got a backup attacker. You might have to do something like, Lily's Pokédoll just to sacrifice the hit. Next turn, Slaking VMAX comes back out, hits 300, and you're done. And again, it could be like a bunch of overkill. But then if you're dealing with something like a VMAX that doesn't deal, that's higher than 300 HP, you can chip them down a bit, but you're not going to kill them. You're not going to one-shot them. And a lot of VMAX Pokemon don't one-shot each other unless it's weakness. But again, Slaking is a colorless Pokemon, so there's no weakness. So you're good on that aspect. I feel like this attack is fairly decent. I feel like it's pretty fair in terms of, competitive-wise. It's a big attack for a big amount that's only once every 2 turns. So yeah, I feel like that would be decent. Also, there are other things like, but what if you have 2 Slaking VMAX out? Well then, again, it's the same premise. You could either use a bunch of your welders to try and get both Slakings running, which would take a lot more time than you think. Because yeah, there are ways to get around it, but then there are ways to get around a lot of different decks. And again, with the weakness, it shares the same weakness with things like Pikarom, with things like Pikachu VMAX, Eternatus, so it won't go to show that a lot of decks are going to get rid of it. And especially with something like 400 HP that's weak to fighting, Colossal VMAX can take it out. Even something like Vorlinx V can take it out in one go, if you really think about it, which is insane. Vorlinx V is like one of the worst Vs. It hurts my heart because I love Vorlinx, but it's one of the worst Vs we have right now, and that can take out Slaking VMAX. So it's not like it's an unstoppable card. It can still get stopped. It's just if you let your opponent roll for too long, you're in big trouble. But of course, that's obviously my way about it, and obviously with the ability, it works both ways. So say, for example, I have 2 Slaking Vs on the bench. I evolve both of them at the same time, but then that means I can't use either of them. So then that has to make me think, right, I've evolved this one at this turn. That means I have to wait a turn to evolve the other one so I can do that attack. So instead of someone going like, I have 2 or 3 Slaking and I'm going to evolve them all, well, all of them are going to attack and not attack in the same turns because you evolve them that way. So the whole point of it is that, you take Slaking V, you do what you can, charge up the energy, you do whatever you can, evolve one to Slaking VMAX, and then you get the other one and you set up that way. By that turn, Slaking VMAX can't attack, you have another Slaking on the bench, you evolve that one to VMAX, and then you can just swap back and forth if that's what you're going to do. But if you're too hasty and evolve both of them at the same time, you've basically just locked yourself out of doing 300 damage every turn. And that way you just have 2 Pokemon that hit 300 damage, but at the same time. But yeah, that's kind of my opinion on what I think Slaking VMAX should be like. Again, a lot of my fantasy picks revolve a lot around the video game because I feel like there should be a lot of references to the video game. I don't know why, I just feel like it's an awesome thing to see, you know, Pokemon TCG mixed with the video game, just to kind of get that whole aspect of this is how this Pokemon plays. Like we said in the last video with Regieleki and Regidrago, again, I'll put that in the description below. They work well with each other. They, you know, the whole game plan is to revolve around themselves. But that's for that video. You guys want to check it out, by all means check it out. It's an awesome video, put a lot of thought into it. I hope you guys enjoy it. But yeah, same thing with Slaking. Like, if for those of you who played the video game, I remember playing something like Pokemon Emerald or Pokemon Ruby, where you face the normal type gym leader who has 2 Slakings, and then you've got to literally revolve your whole game plan on how to, you know, hit Slaking. You could either brace for impact on the first turn, wait for him to stall out, and then you hit him that turn, and then you just keep going, or you try and charge hard, charge heavy, and just hope and pray that you tank the hit. Which is the same if Slaking VMAX had a card like this. If it had a card like this, it'd be the same prospect. You could either, you know, go hard and he'd hit hard as well, just make sure you tank the attack, or you can brace yourself, maybe do something like a protecting move for first off, and then you can't get hit. The next time when he can't attack, you hit him hard, and just keep doing that same process over and over and over again. So yeah, so I wouldn't say Slaking VMAX is a broken card. I'd find that he'd be, you know, kind of tricky to use, but I'd feel like he wouldn't be unbeatable. He'd be very tankish, he'd be very, very strong, but he wouldn't be unbeatable. So that's kind of my opinion if Slaking VMAX or V had a card as well. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think this is a bit overpowered? Would you guys change things up with Slaking V or VMAX if it had a card? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions. But as always guys, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed, always leave a like and always click on another video. You guys are always welcome back. And I'll see you all in the next video. Alright guys, take care and I'll see you all later. Okay, bye!